And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I am glad I was never inquisitive enough to get into and solving puzzles, because I maybe instinctively knew I would have summoned something or I would have been summoned somewhere else.
Shit, I was. Give me a dot to dot right now. I have such riddles to answer.
That's why I'm glad there are no Rubik's Cubes in your house.
And weird S&M Rubik's Cube.
We'll get to the weird S&M Rubik's Cube. So I'm curious how everyone feels now after 2 super nasty, gnarly, naughty Clive Barker films.
Juicy. Just like in any way you want to take that. Just ew.
And it's really funny. I almost think that we sometimes need to give another time.
Another place?
Warning, potentially. But with this one, even in 1987.
This is another place, another plane of existing.
That is very true. That is very true. Now, in 1987, even though we didn't have the internet, we had the analog equivalent to that because I knew of Hellraiser before I even saw it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to we're going to go back here. We're going to do a little go back all the way to probably 1986, Oak Park Mall, either B. Dalton Bookseller or Walden Books. On the lower shelf in the back was Fangoria. And I remember distinctly seeing scenes from Hellraiser where I saw Frank, and he
faceless,
popped off the page. I remember seeing Frank coming together and going, what is this movie?
And just the pure image of Pinhead, like such mysterious and powerful and weird and just... Who is that?
The over-under on we have such sights to show you is going to be high, but back in 87 and 88 when these 2 films came back, we had not seen sights like this. At least I know I have not. Now, maybe I wasn't watching all the good S&M, things that Genius here was. We weren't going the Marshall
Bell Marathon?
But I did not see the original Hellraiser in the theater. By any chance, did you?
I did, but I left because I was bored.
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all because I remember seeing it finally on VHS, and if you all remember that VHS tape, it's iconic.
Yeah.
It's next level.
I saw it in the theater, but I remember being like, okay, there's not a lot happening, and then I left.
Wait, now, in 87, how old were you?
9 years old, and half of it was like, okay, cover your... I didn't get it, and I think, like, because, and it's kind of like... It's kind of like the Cenobites themselves, something they said in part 2, where they said, hands don't summon us, desire summons us. So I think the reason why I didn't get in and was kind of bored was because I didn't know of the pleasures of the flesh. I was still innocent enough to distinguish pleasure and pain and all that. And I think it's not until you can dig it if you're younger and you don't get it.
Again, I guaranteed it launched 1,000 fetishes. It was that initial scratch that got
what's
it.
That? Like, who's that bald girl with the things growing out of her heads and the hooks? I don't know, son. There's a trouble a brewing, but
and I was going to say, and no ill effects, of course, of seeing it at 9 years old.
No, none at all.
Model citizen.
Whoosh. But I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, until you know those themes that he's trying to tackle, then you really can't grab it. And it's not anything like an intelligence-wise. It's just an experience-wise.
It is, and it's a film that I also agree. I felt like it was an adult film.
You need to have a certain sense of past the innocence of youth to actually know the true pleasures of the flesh, to understand what the theologians are talking about.
Well, speaking of theologians, I know you did a little internet research here, and
a lot of internet research.
I should say this. I know you all are paying for this content, so my apologies in advance, because we're about to use a G word.
Multiple times.
Possible of multiple times. So, Genius, again, we talked about the Cenobites. Now, I will say this. The Cenobites, for me, are wonderful in these first 2 films because they're on the periphery.
Right.
They're not the main antagonist in the film.
And they never are. Until part 3, they never are. Mm-hmm. It's always Julia, and I'll get to her because I have a lot of thoughts about Julia.
I love Julia's journey.
Oof. So
another thing that changed from 9 to 44.
Right? Oof, Julia. No, so a group of Cenobites is known as a gash.
Sincerely?
Sincerely, absolutely. A gash of Cenobites. In fact, Cenobite is actually a real term. Its origins go back into the Mosaic temples and stuff like that. In fact, a Cenobite is a member of a theological or Masonic order. That's what an actual Cenobite is. But now, because of Hellraiser, nobody knows what the fuck a Cenobite is except for the Pinhead. And they're theologians because they are called, according to Clive Barker, the Cenobite gash that we know of, is they're theologians of the Order of the Gash. So Clive Barker's always talking about gash and flesh and blood and fluids. And
I guarantee Hellraiser and anything by Clive Barker, Maud Lebowski is a huge fan of because his work is strongly...
Vagina.
he throws in some coitus in there as well.
Yeah.
And that's what ultimately I think when I watch this film again, it is all about this just unrepenting desire.
Yeah.
And like you said, the desire that makes you do bad things, that summons nasty things, that... Is this a cautionary tale?
It's almost like when you take your fetish too far. Because you can have fetishes and it's all right. Let your freak flag fly. Whatever two consenting adults do in their own home is whatever the fuck they're going to do in their own home.
This is true. We're very pro
right?
on that.
Do whatever you fucking want. But when your obsession starts leading you to dark territories, this is a goddamn cautionary tale.
Now, are you talking Under Siege 2 dark territory, or are we going...
That could be an obsession in itself to Tommy Lee Jones porn.
No. That would actually... No. We're going...
Oh, no, that's Speed 2.
Eric
No.
Bogosian in that one in part 2, my friend. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, bad tangent there. But the more you know, I'm very
Dun,
impressed.
dun, dun, dun. But no, yeah. So when you're, because I love me some clowns, but I'm not gonna go like.
Do you think it's more than a push for moderation?
I think everything in moderate. I think it's like, yeah, almost be careful what you wish for and how far you're willing to go.
The monkey's paw?
It's almost like a sexual monkey's paw because like they're looking for that next thrill. They're looking for, because all the pleasures of the world left them numb. And so the people who go and search the Cenobites, they have that desire to reach farther. And that's when shit gets bad. Like,
and it reaches out for you.
Right. Like tickling fetishes. You know what I'm saying? Tangent. I recently saw that Tickled documentary.
That goes in a weird place.
Exactly. So what starts off as a fetish goes into something extremely dark, and that's the whole moral of Hellraiser. Be careful.
Well, especially if you're a freak like Frank.
Frank is a filthy fucking freak. Frank's a freak from the get. Okay, so you know when we first introduced to Frank, he's all dirty and grimy and
Theater 3, a little Theater 3.
And he's and like they go to his like, oh, Frank must have been here because there's like pornos and like playing cards and like fucking ceramic porn figurines.
Everything he owns, I don't care how minuscule it is, I don't care how mundane it is.
It's like, can I borrow a pen? And it's one of those ones where you turn it upside down and like a naked chick.
Everything is sexually oriented. Like Frank has filled every orifice. He has explored
multiple times.
Oh, absolutely.
And the fact that you leave your Polaroids of all your freak expeditions just out and about, Frank. Once again, whatever you do, cool. But like, don't leave it out for God and country to see. If I'm gonna go over to somebody's house, the last thing I want to see is like all their shit, unless that's what I'm going for.
But so yeah, again, consenting adults.
Right.
Well, we in the pre-show we did put a little thing from the book to the movie. And do you know what actually helps summon Frank in the book?
Jizz.
And we're not talking Star Wars music, ladies and gentlemen.
No, just like some of Frank's essence. And
he multiple MIGs all over the place.
Ugh.
It's really nasty.
It's like a Metallica cover, just blood and semen just mixed in, and that's what brings up Frank.
But that's consistent. And the bringing up of Frank might be one of the most amazing pieces of practical effects.
This side of the thing.
Oh my God.
It is phenomenal, and it still holds up to this day. Even when it starts off small and the blood is just seeping into the wood like it's being absorbed, and you hear the sucking sound and just the little heart starting to bring. And he just comes out, and he's fucking gross. He was gross when he was alive, and he's even gross when he's dead. And he's even fucking scarier when he first comes out, and he starts scurrying. When he scurries, fucking... I forgot that he scurried. When he scurries out of the bed and like, help me, Julia. I was like, no.
I did the same thing.
Kill him with fire.
Because I forgot about it.
Me
and
too.
there were certain jump scenes I remember like...
But I forgot.
Oh.
These were such a good rewatch.
These did play wonderfully again in a rewatch. Frank himself is horrible. Now,
Julia's a rancid bitch. I'm gonna come out and just say it. I hate talking about like that, but you know what? No, I don't hate talking like that, but you know what I mean. Fucking, she's a rancid bitch for the simple fact is before she tried to like, you know, in part 2 kill Kirsty and all that other shenanigans. The fact of the matter is she was banging her soon-to-be husband's brother on her fucking wedding dress. That's fucking rancid. That's fucking foul. That's poor shit. They deserve to get their souls ripped apart for that.
well, and this actually does play out. The first film was very much Frank's film as the antagonist, but as you say, the connective tissue between the two is Julia.
Julia's awful. She's a hater from the get. You see when like, hi Dad, I'm home. Christy walks in, she's like, "Nyeh," you know, and it's like, ugh.
And I remember watching this as a young man and just going, dude, this woman is just evil incarnate. But
Right.
now I really appreciate her journey as a horror villain. And I think, sadly, she gets lost in the whole pantheon of the Cenobites and Pinhead as a great horror villain.
Well, she was supposed to be going, if they would have continued with Clive Barker's original thing, she was going to be the main villain through the rest of the series.
That would have carried?
Yeah, she would have been reborn as the Queen of Hell. In the end of part 2,
Yeah.
when the Leviathan comes out and it starts spinning around, what's your pleasure, sir? That one, it was actually going to be Julia, but like fully formed as like the Queen of Hell.
I would have loved that.
I would have loved that too. I would have loved the further adventures of Julia, but because this was done in the 80s and they weren't ready for a female protagonist. Look what happened to Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, right? They weren't ready for that shit. Nobody was going to see something about like the Queen of Hell, although that sounds fucking dope now. But Pinhead and the Cenobites were such an iconic visuals.
Yeah,
that
everything
they
about
stole
them.
everything about it, and then from then on, it became their franchise.
But you know what? There's proof that there is wrestling, at least professional wrestling, in hell where the Cenobites come from. If you notice, Chatterface or Chatterbox, do you notice his first move when Christie summons?
He does the Eisengriff.
He does the mandible claw.
Yeah, the mandible claw, the Eisengriff. He
that
just grabs it, and he's like, because it's right after the weird dinner with the weird doctor, and then he's like, hey, and he puts a cigarette in his mouth, and I'm like, ew, because that fucking gross. I smoke, and that's gross. And like, and then the next thing she goes up there and like, hello, Christie, you know. That's a terrible night.
It always bothered me and affected me, and once I got into wrestling, and I was like, okay, Mankind, Mick Foley, he has to be a Hellraiser fan. Like, there's got to be a little influence.
Like the fucking his mask actually has pins all over it.
No, actually, one or the other, either they inspired each other with all the thumbtacks that has been in that man's body.
That's true.
There's somehow or another, there is that kind of connective tissue.
That is absolutely
But
true.
that always bothered me. But what I really like in the original Hellraiser is that the Cenobites, they're in maybe 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
At most.
They're not even the main villains. They're basically guards of hell.
Yeah, they're greeters, actually.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we got such size. Come on in to Pinhead's Crazy Pleasure Emporium. We got all sorts of stuff. You got like your holes getting filled up with all sorts of chains and shit. We got it right over here. You want to get your skin flayed and you want to get salt thrown in that? We got it right over here. Come on down to Pinhead's Pleasure Emporium. We'll tickle your fancy. And like, so...
Uncut, that's the site we have to show you, ladies and gentlemen.
No, but the special effects work so well. The Pinhead is iconic, and the Cenobites have their own distinct flavors.
They could all each carry their own movie.
Well, and they all have interesting backstories too.
Yeah.
Upon the research upon this, like Pinhead was never called Pinhead. He was supposed to be called Priest.
Yeah, and like lead Cenobite.
He's the lead Cenobite. The female Cenobite, her nickname was Deep Throat. Right? And because if you notice, it makes sense because she's got the...
tracheotomy.
Right?
The vaginotomy. I don't know what that is. I mean,
gashotomy. But then there's Chatter, and then there's Butterball. And like they all have such unique backstories. But the Cenobites, like you said, they're just the peripheries. Frank is the main villain in this one because he is so disturbing and creepy. Not only the fact that he's an undead diddler, but the fact that he's scary. When he comes up looking like the Visible Man,
yes,
such great practical effects like that still hold up to this day. And I think that's why like this movie still can shock because the themes are still pleasures and pains and all that. And
angels to some, demons to other. Probably the best selling point of this film, where it's all perspective.
It's true, all perspective, but at the same time, I don't mind. I don't mind a little bit of pleasure and pain indivisible, right? But at the same time, there's a fucking line. Getting like flayed and hooks and shit like that. I don't care how like tingly that is. That doesn't look like fun.
That line when he is just all the hooks are in him and he just does that Jesus wept.
And he had that smile.
And then he does a and then the whoosh, the undoing of Frank.
You know, that original line, he was going to say, fuck you, and then just explode. But then somebody goes like, hey, he should say Jesus wept and be creepy about it. And he works so well because he has that smile. He's just licking his lips. And he's like, come to daddy. And it's so fucking disturbing because he's a goddamn diddler uncle.
Well, Ashley Lawrence, who plays Kirsty, who
did
was
great.
So good in the series and a great artist in real life. Apparently, in the original, Kirsty was a friend of the dad, not the daughter. So actually changing to the...
and it makes more sense because it adds a whole realm of creepiness.
Another layer of grime and groove.
Right, because like being a friend who wants to diddle the father is one thing and like seeing all this shit's going on. But being the daughter of a dad who like is getting cheated on and then the uncle wants to diddle you, that's a whole level of creepiness.
And that right up Clive Barker's alley.
Yeah. All about like weird sex.
Well, going from 1987 and Hellraiser into the sequel, and the sequel falls in the great tradition of some other franchises that start with H, where the original goes directly into the second one.
First of all, I love that. I absolutely fucking adore that. But I love the fact we didn't even go talk about the hobo in part
the
one.
Hobo. The music, Christopher's.
Yeah, before we go into part two, let's finish talking about part one because the music is amazing.
It's
Everything
so
just fucking works in that. But the hobo is creepy. The hobo is the scariest thing. Did he not remind you of Charlie Day though?
Is this after like long after the waitress and the gang?
After that, him being total rat king, just like we're trash people now. We're bridge people.
Technically, given his levels on the spectrum, that he is good with things like that, I could totally see Charlie summoning.
And Frank can be Frank.
Frank
come to daddy. I'm here to
wanted to be pure.
We have such hooas to bang, and just like.
The gang go puzzling. The
gang goes to hell.
There it is.
Do.
But have Christopher Young do the score, and then it's even better. No, I agree. Any other final thoughts on the original Hellraiser?
Did I tell you the original names for these movies?
Lay them out to us.
Okay, so this is based on Clive Barker's story, The Hellbound Heart, and he was going to name it The Hellbound Heart, but the producers were like, that sounds too much like a romance. Can you give it a different name? And he goes, okay. And so the working title was going to be, shit you not, Sadomasochists from Beyond the Grave, right?
So is that going to be a double pairing with slime, sorority slime? Blah, blah.
So sorority slime babes and slime ball bolorama?
My God, why not, right?
We got such size to show you, peckerhead. And just Buck Razor.
Oh my God. He's got a bindle of doom behind him. Come on now, that stuff writes itself.
It's a bindle, but it's made out of spikes and like fucking barbed wire.
Human flesh, absolutely. I'll watch that movie. I'll watch it. Make it happen, gang. Well,
No.
I guess we can't make that happen now. But segueing from like, as Halloween goes into Halloween 2, as Hatchet goes into Hatchet 2, much like Hellraiser goes right into Hellraiser 2.
I fucking love it. I fucking love like previously on Hellraiser, and it shows you the bits part. In fact, there was 2 previouslys.
Yeah.
And like the first previously was like, okay, we're coming right back from it. But then the second one told the whole story. But it was smart the way they did it.
I like how they did it.
Because like if you've never seen part 1, you don't really need to.
Well, and that's why this film does kind of work as a self-contained story, but also, I mean, coming a year after. And this is, I guess technically we did get a lot of that because Friday the 13th, you got that every year for the most part. So that's not uncommon.
But not a direct continuation where like it's the same night, like a la Halloween or Friday the 13th, 2 and 3.
And here we get an expansion of the entire universe where we now go where the Cenobites invaded our realm, now we invade theirs.
Right.
And not too long ago when we watched The Void as one of our Shudder Shout-Out double features, also could feel Hellraiser so much in The Void, but now retroactively looking at The Void in Hellraiser as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's a total... things, you have a classic on your hands when you say, oh, it's Hellraiser in space, or it's Hellraiser plus, like Event Horizon, or it's Hellraiser plus Halloween, like The Void, or Hellraiser plus this, or Hellraiser meets that. When Hellraiser is your base, you know you have something special.
Something's gonna good, yeah.
You know you have something special.
It'd been a little while since I'd watched the second one, and like I said, I really love the continuation of the story, but also the fact that we get Dr. Chenard in this movie, who, oh my goodness.
Okay, so just when we think that just when we think that Christy couldn't have any more battles, she already battled Frank and the Cenobites and Julia. Now she has to battle Frank, Cenobites, Julia again, and Dr. Chenard. But the thing I like about Christy, she's ready to fucking fight. One more, going back to Hellraiser 1, something I wrote down, and I totally wanted to talk about it. You know the part where at the very end, when that fucking Evil Dead Scorpion,
the engineer,
he comes out and he's like at her, and she's trying to solve the box, and the boyfriend is like, wait, Helen, and she's like, stop, and she just swings back and looks at him like, I fucking got this, and like she does that. That was like all improvised. And that was like, and that's what made her great, because she doesn't need anybody else. She only needed Tiffany to solve the puzzle in the first place. But she was the one that put 2 and 2 together in the first one. She was the one that solved all the problems. And so, like, I think Christy does not get enough recognition in the pantheon of survival girls.
Well, also, I would say, have you read any of the comics that extend the
From
Hellraiser
Boone?
universe?
Yes.
Because I know that she ultimately becomes one of the Cenobites herself.
Mm-hmm.
So
like a queen of hell, like a Julia.
And that's what's great in comics, because you're not restricted to what you can put on screen. It's just pure your imagination. They did that with Fright Night as well, where they did a continuation of it. I kind of like that, because
they did that with Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, and
then brought in Ash in it.
Yes, which had all the previous Survivor girls.
Yes.
And
cool Tommy
stuff
Jarvis.
Out there if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, there's a lot of great horror comics out there that continue your favorite stories.
But there are little bits with Dr. Chenard where, especially after his initial transformation, when he's like...
And to think, I hesitated. So creepy, his delivery.
Such a great delivery.
But he's so creepy even in the get. Like, at it's great to see it, because I haven't saw it for a long time, but I remember it. But we're first introduced to Dr. Chenard when he's doing this horrific Viago treatment, brain surgery type thing, and he's like, the search in the brain is the labyrinth of the mind. What drives us, and he's basically laying out the entire story of what's going on and his motivation on why he's going to do all this shit. And then he starts, oh shit. First of all, whenever you have an insane asylum and it's in a sub-basement.
There's levels under the levels.
Shit, the scariest fucking scenes in that movie was in the basement. Again, the real world horror. No matter what pleasures and pains Cenobites can have for you, it's got nothing compared to what the evil of men do right now.
They still pale in comparison to what humanity is.
But he's totally fucking over his hippopotamus oath, because when he takes that guy who's like, man, get him off me, and he's just coldly and calmly like, here you go, let's see what happens.
Chenard was into Giallo, pulls out a straight razor.
Extremely Giallo. He even had gloves on and everything.
But also the fact that they brought in Frank's mattress.
Okay, nothing good comes from a discarded bloody mattress. Nothing good comes from that.
Especially his. Now, I don't want to say that thing is a petri dish of everything in the world, but
even without the giant blood stains, it was still a stained, filthy mattress.
If you could wring it out,
ghosts would come out. Woo! Like if you burned it, like really, the demon from the first one would come out of the...
So when he lets him go hog wild on him, and oh my God, that's another one I remember from Fangoria and then seeing that. But the fact that it summons Julia, and I distinctly remember, I was like, oh, her hands pop up at some point, and it still made me jump.
Yeah.
And then when her face comes out...
And she's all wide-eyed and crazy, like, ha, ha, ha.
And she's got the Frank going on. And you get her journey now coming back, and then the gauzing and the kissing.
Okay, so, yeah, I have mixed thoughts about that.
Oh, no.
First of all...
Oh, no.
Skinless Julia, not a deal breaker? Question mark? I'm still debating. But... in both those movies, both Hellraiser 1 and Hellraiser 2, when they started making out and seducing the skinless people, and then there's still like juice and sinew on it, I was like, okay, maybe deal breaker.
Definitely not a deal sealer.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Not sealing with a kiss.
She was gross and awful.
Well, and I like the little bit of almost humanity they give her when she looks in the mirror and she just smashes it. And then, of course, we go through.
Like in the Joker, the mirror.
But it gives her that sense. But then, of course, we find out she's nothing but a pawn from the Leviathan. Now, those little M.C. Escher bits we get in
glass matte paintings,
wonderful.
God's
I love
absolutely
those.
gorgeous. They don't do that stuff anymore.
No, they don't.
It
They
just
don't.
adds this whole element of like otherworldliness to it.
Yes, it's not. There's almost an uncanny valley involved in it.
But it still feels real.
Yes.
And it still feels like
Tangible.
incredibly crazy. That was my favorite part of that. Like just seeing it, like just the whole, the scope
Yes.
of the Hell's Labyrinth.
Well, and then Leviathan itself with this thing, and that's my God.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my God. No, my God.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh, speaking of, you know that sound that the Leviathan
What is
makes?
it? What is it?
It's Morse code for God.
really interesting, because when Chenard gets blasted, with which I don't know what's happening, if it's like sensing if he could be a
Yeah,
Cenobite.
it's judging whether you should be
Okay.
whether you're dark enough to be a Cenobite. That's when it was like, okay, cool, yeah, you're
There you go.
you're the one we want. That's why I didn't do that with Tiffany.
That's true.
Because
That's
she was
true.
still innocent. Again, like he said, it's not
intent.
hands that summon us; it's the intent. And so, like that just
and the road to hell or Leviathan is
paved with bad intentions. Because Julia and Frank were terrible from the get.
Yes.
And it still gets worse. Like even Frank's hell, like his own like diddle morgue, like his diddle tease morgue. They hit to tease me, and I'm like, oh man, that sucks. That'd be like if my hell would be like Pizza Ranch, and I'm like, oh man.
No, it would be Pizza
Diddly
Ranch.
Pizza Ranch,
Then they would throw a lot of cheese on it, and then you'd be yeah.
Then I'd be like, wah.
Your own
Angels
personal
to
private-
some
yeah.
and demons to others. But
Uh,
I wish they would have spent more time in Hell's Carnival.
I do too. Oh,
Fucking
yeah, that
Hell's
was-
Carnival was slick. Although it was weird to see the babies skull in their own mouth, like Clive Barker's weird doll fetish
I
thing.
forgot about that, and when
It
it,
was
hit, I'm like,
weird.
oh yeah, that is weird.
Everything was weird about that, but at the same time, I'm totally down for Hell's Carnival.
But then you get Cenobite Chenard as this like be all end all that takes everyone out,
Kills everybody.
which I remember the first time I saw this, that freaked me out because I was like, you can't kill, like he can't kill them. Of course
Right.
he has to
He's a
think about-
brand new cinema. Who the
He
fuck
should-
does he think
should
he
be
is?
teaming up with them, right?
Right.
And
You're not a member of the Order of the Gash.
you got to go through your probationary period,
Exactly.
right? And he takes everyone out with his
His squiddly diddlies.
Yes.
His big squiddly diddly and that big phallic thing that grabs him by the head. But I love how he's so operatic about,
Well,
because he comes out even singing ha, 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 when he's like killing people, and then when he's getting hurt, he's like if Freddie Mercury was a villain.
I would totally dig a Freddie Mercury Cenobite.
Yeah.
Only if he kept the mustache.
Another one
though.
opens the box. Another one opens the box. Hey, hey, hey. Gonna stab you too. Another one opens the box.
And he takes everyone out. And
Frank Bottom girls.
Jesus. Speaking of the practical effects, the stop motion puppetry that involved with his squiddly diddly little fingers, I really dug. Watching these kind of back to back, I forgot about the connectivity, so that was a nice surprise.
It was a great
Other
nice
thoughts
surprise.
on Hellraiser 2 there, genius?
The Cenobite process looks fucking painful as shit.
Even when you think you're done.
it's not.
Oh, by the way,
Yeah, like, oh, we're not done with you yet, you know?
every little bit of it, but also just their reactions to it. Like, especially when that happened, you see a little bit of a smile. And with Chenard, it's just like...
He's got a little bit of like to think I hesitated.
that line.
But it's so weird how like they use their own, like hoist upon their own petard, like their own like sins to even become a Cenobite. It's like
Certainly.
even when he was the doctor, it was still about the brain and it was still about the surgery scalpels.
Yep.
You know? And like he had even, remember when he was trying to be nice to Christy? When he was like, had the flower came out of his squiddly diddling and the other
then
finger
the-
came out of that? And I was like, deal breaker? And so like...
he knows the ways of romance. He's not negging her at this point. He's not doing a mystery thing. You know, he's actually trying to woo her.
But it was great. The first time I saw that, I thought, okay, Julia had a change of heart because here she comes. But then the reveal that it was Christy was even better.
that whole thing with the Julia suit was awesome. In fact, actually, when
it was well played.
It
when
really
she's
was.
like, grab it, trust me. And I'm like, this is fucking Joe Dante's like Hellraiser.
I was going to say, it's like a reverse Gerald's game for the most part, the way that came off.
Regloving.
No, but that was nice. And actually kind of a turnabout is fair play in terms of what Frank did with her dad, ultimately, in the first one.
I wrote this joke down. When Julia comes down, she's got no skin on, and she's like, I'm cold. And I was like, wouldn't it be chilly with no skin on? Have you heard that song, The Ghost of John? You never heard that Ghost of John? There's this song we used to sing back in elementary school. It's like, have you seen the ghost of John? Long white bones with the skin all gone. Ooh.
I don't know that one.
Wouldn't it be chilly with no skin on? And that's the song. That's the entire fucking song. So when she's like, I'm cold, and I'm like, well, wouldn't it be chilly with no skin on?
See, 9-year-old genius, that's something he would have known, and that all comes back to that. I mean, I'm telling you, that firmly planted right from 9 to now in your 40s, my friend.
Okay, so interesting things about Hellraiser 2.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who the original writer and director was going to be?
David Lynch.
Malcolm McDowell.
Really?
He wanted they almost had he wanted to try his hand in Hellraiser 2. I don't know how that would work, but I think like Pinhead is fucking dead, and just like, just
Could have dodged a bullet there.
could have. The dad didn't come back. They offered him a role, and he goes, "No, I'm done with the whole horror." Because, like, I don't know. Apparently, when he got his, that was a great scene. That whole ripping scene that makes me wince. But like,
also Andrew Robinson as the original Zodiac and Dirty Harry, and the guy from Cobra.
In Cobra.
So I'd like to see. Also, filmed the first one very Canadian, very
Super.
Canadian.
But no, so yeah, he didn't come back, and then they had to do a whole rewrite because like in Frank's Dilmorg, they were going to be like they were actually going to be fused together, and then finally it was going to be that the dad takes Kirsty and like save me from hell, but it didn't work out that way. Clive Barker got his inspiration for the Cenobites by hanging out in S&M bars that were actually right next to some of the locations that were filmed in Brain Damage.
Oh,
so
boy.
basically,
Well.
Almer's a Cenobite. It's Almer's chains. So, and the one last thing. So, what I like about Clive Barker is he doesn't give a fuck, right? I mean, he's gonna do how he wants to do it, and what he wants to do it. But like critics hated this movie. Like I remember Siskel and Ebert, this Hellbound 2 came out and it was on Roger Ebert's worst movies of the And in fact, there was a critic that was coming out. It's like, yeah, it's a good movie, but I don't like horror movies, right? But so it's no good. And Clive Barker sat him down in an interview, locked the door, and said, "Who the fuck do you think you are to say that it's just because you don't like it that it's not good on its own merits?" He goes, "I don't like war movies, but I can tell you that this movie, blah, 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 is still good on its own merits. Mm-hmm. So just because you don't like it doesn't give you the right to shit all over it." And so then the critic was like, "You know what? You're right." And then he gave Hellbound Hellraiser 2 a fantastic review over like the sheer like scope of it.
Certainly.
And so like give Clive Barker, you say that he's like got sex on the brain, he's a diddly dude or whatever. He's not a diddly dude. He just likes talking about diddling. But like, he's got a point.
Oh no, he's a super intelligent man.
Yeah.
I mean, we've said it before. Genre and horror attracts very intelligent people because they can put the most horrific things through various filters, and you get Hellraiser. Mm-hmm. You get David Cronenberg's visions. You get Lynch. You get Carpenter. You get all these maestros out there. And it's wonderful.
Who would you like to see tackle a Hellraiser movie?
In like today's day and age?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness.
Or any director.
Actually, I would like to see Carolyn Forgot, who did Revenge.
Huh?
I think she could do a very interesting take on Hellraiser.
I would love to see Cronenberg's Hellraiser.
Oh. You know what? I think we got close enough with Videodrome. That's kind of close to summoning some things out of it.
Okay, if you're a Cenobite, what would your modus operandi be? What would be your pleasure thing that turns into like, because like the guy who had the CDs in his head,
right.
He loved CDs, and the guy who I guess
I'd have. I'm a milk toast guy, so I'd probably turn into like just the most wishy-washy thing. I would just be the most plain Jane Cenobite. Like there would be nothing demonic about me, nothing. I would blend in the corner, and then when you would forget about me, I would do something horrific to take you back, but you would never see me coming because that's just me. I just sit in the back and I observe, and that's my downfall.
I have interesting sites to show you if you'd care to see.
Like.
If you want. I mean, no big deal. No
Yeah,
pressure.
if you don't want to, I
no
understand.
pressure. I mean, it's cool. It's cool.
I'd guilt you into it.
Like a hook brings out like a tissue. Like, here you go.
Here you go. always courteous.
The friendliest Cenobite.
What about you, genius?
I think I would just have like tentacles all over coming out, right?
Yep.
Maybe like a microphone that like when I would yell, it would like send shockwaves or something. But like just something just like Butterball, but just id.
Would you be gooey?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, that's
I
good.
think it would be an excellent Cenobite. I think it would be a fantastic Cenobite.
Well, I'm glad we don't have any puzzle boxes here. So, hope you all had fun with Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2. Honestly, I know I did. This
was
classics.
great. I love these movies. The thing about it is, I hold Hellraiser in high regard, but I don't see it often enough as I see like Friday the 13th or Nightmares or.
I think it's one of those, you don't have to prepare for this one, but it's not one. It's a fun movie, but it's not a fun movie.
It's a heady movie.
It is.
And it's a very sexually charged movie, whether you see it or not. And like, if you're not ready for that, you're not going to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Either with age or just by the day. And so like, that's the one thing I think Hellraiser doesn't get enough respect for being as good as it is, 1 and 2, because 2 I think is just as good as 1.
I really enjoyed 2. I will always go back to number 3. Anything beyond that, if that's your favorite, you are correct. You know, they're not.
Angels
honestly,
to some, demons to others.
Exactly. So thank you for this recommendation, man. This was very nice. Now, our next one, of course, we still haven't figured out, but there is a lot out there in Shudder. So if you do have any suggestions, we do listen. Thank you, Jesse, for the Jallo.
Yeah. If you got sites to show us, let us know.
Please do. And of course, thank you for being part of the Patreon, Screenland Patreon film family. So I guess until the next Shudder Shutout, this is Greg D.
I'm Genius McGee.
And we'll see you in your dreams.
Jesus wept.